No adverts, no playlists, just music. 365 Radio.
This is 365 Sounds. I'm Gary Walker, and earlier I spoke with Dr. Mitchell Yass of the United States, talking about his methods of relieving pain, identifying the source of pain, and how to eliminate pain forever. Here is Dr. Yass on 365 Sounds.
The Weekend Whopper Breakfast Show with Gary Walker on 365 Radio.
I'm joined on the line by Mitchell Yass. Mitchell is an author and expert on pain management. Thank you for joining us, Mitchell.
Thank you for having me, and I would always like to make the point that pain management is actually something I'm against. The idea of managing pain is not a great approach to addressing pain. The answer should be to properly identify the tissue in distress, eliciting the pain, and resolve the distress of that tissue, thereby ending its need to elicit pain, and that's how you stop pain from occurring.
Thank you for that correction. And tell me a bit about how you go about identifying the source.
So for the past 40 years, the global population has been told that the MRI is the proper way for diagnosing the tissue in distress eliciting your pain. And I can say without any hesitation that there is absolutely no theoretical, clinical, or scientific evidence to make that statement be true. The MRI was actually initially designed and created to identify tumors in the brain. And I guess because there wasn't a large demand for it, somehow they got a secondary usage concept to where they were now saying that it actually can identify the cause of pain. Well, it actually uses something called correlative theory, which simply says that just because you have pain and at the time a herniated disc is identified, that infers that that's the cause. It's simply not true, and in fact, studies have shown over over 70% of the population who have no back pain have been shown to have herniated or bulging discs. And there's other studies that have shown of the people who have no hip region pain, 75% are shown to have arthritis or labral tears, and this can go on and on. So, as I was completing my physical therapy school, I was compelled to ask people, could you point to where your pain is? Could you actually show me where your pain is? And when they pointed to where their pain was, it wasn't where it should be if the identified structural abnormality was to cause pain. So if the pain isn't where the structural abnormality, like a herniated disc, arthritis, or stenosis, or a meniscal tear was to cause pain, I think it should be clear then, by definition, they can't be the cause of that pain. So I began to recognize that the only true way to identify the cause of pain is to interpret the symptoms that are present because they are real time and occurring at the time of distress of the tissue. And as I started evaluating people's symptoms from head to toe, in more than 98% of cases, I found the cause to be muscular, that there was a muscle in distress that wasn't able to allow the person to perform their activity without that muscle straining, and that was eliciting the symptom, even when structural abnormalities were identified by MRI. So I created a series of exercises that incorporate the understanding of physics, and I was able to get people out of pain and fully functional in 1 to 2 treatments. And this has now been going on for 30 years of correlating symptoms, understanding muscular causes, and allowing people to become pain-free and fully functional in just weeks.
And this is through the use of exercise.
It's a very specific form of exercise that I created in which I applied the laws of physics to allow me to isolate individual muscles and apply progressive resistance, which is the ability of a muscle to adapt to a greater and greater resistance to allow it to get stronger until its force output, how much force the muscle can create, is greater than the force requirement of activities. So when it creates enough force, it doesn't strain and elicit symptoms.
I guess the big question I would ask is, why don't most doctors use this practice?
Well, first of all, you have to understand it's almost impossible to move inertia. And so basically this idea of using the MRI has been around for 40 years, and it's now a culturally accepted concept globally. So if you ask the average person, oh, I have pain at my head, my neck, my back, my shoulder, wherever, what should I do? They're going to say, well, get an MRI. And so if the consumer requests the MRI and the provider provides that, what stops the cycle? If the person, so right now there's roughly 140 million Americans and 1 billion people suffering with chronic pain. And the primary reason for that is quite simply misdiagnosis. But if you only go to somebody who uses the standard method, neither the provider nor the person getting the service realizes that there's something wrong and that something has to change.
Now, of course, in the
and that's why what I do is so extremely unique.
Of course, in the U.S., medical treatment is a for-profit thing. Now, here in the U.K., we have our national medicine, the NHS. And so I would think that because the NHS is always looking for ways to reduce costs, wouldn't they adopt such a procedure here to avoid people having an MRI? Because it's not like they would automatically say, oh, let's give you an MRI. I've gone to my GP with pain for years, suffering from arthritis, and they've never once suggested an MRI, and all they've done is give me painkillers.
Correct. So when you talk about a national healthcare system, in most cases, the premise of a national healthcare system is to keep the costs below a certain revenue that they want to apply dollars towards. So the premise of a typical national healthcare system is to say, well, how could we reduce costs? Well, if we just simply defer people from getting expensive treatments and procedures, that's a good way to reduce costs. So the idea for these type of situations is they'll give you very benign type of rudimentary types of treatments or medications. And as far as I could tell, it's kind of just a delay game, which is that the person eventually just says, you know what? I can't get treatment to get this resolved and allow me to get my life back. So I guess I just have to accept that this is my life. And I think what you really want to understand is that even though it's you have a nationally based paid system, the fact is that if you had back pain and you got a 4-level fusion of your spine and you still have back pain after, that practitioner will still get paid, whether they're paid by the government or an insurance company. That doesn't change. So it doesn't matter who's paying for it. The reality is, as long as payment is made not based on outcome, you're probably never going to change the system.
And how would we go about getting more people then to buy into changing the system?
So I believe that God has compelled me to learn this method, and I go on shows like yours to make people aware that for the first time there is actually a true, legitimate, scientifically based alternative to the existing medical model that allows people within weeks to become pain-free and fully functional, showing that in more than 98% of cases the cause of pain is muscular. By the way, no medical practitioner can make you stronger. Isn't that correct? Only you could make you stronger. So the key is for the person to recognize that their pain is muscular, and then recognize that with the appropriate training program, strength training program, they could resolve their pain, they could return to full function, and they can control it from ever reoccurring. So there has to be an awareness development. And as far as I'm concerned, I've been a guest on about 110 different podcasts, and I'll continue to do that, and I'll continue to create awareness. And as that grows, I plan on certifying practitioners. And as time goes, as more and more people find this, it'll just be a natural progression to where you have a choice between unending treatments, medications, doctor's visits and all that stuff, or a system that allows you to be pain-free and fully functional in a couple of weeks, I think people will simply enter my waiting room door versus neurologists, orthopedists, pain management, physical therapy, all of it. I think this is just a natural progression waiting to happen at this point.
Okay, well, I thank you very much for that information. And I believe you have a book, or actually a few books published on this. Do you want to give us the names of these books?
Sure. So, Overpower Pain was my first book. The Pain Cure RX is my second book, and the Yass Method for Pain-Free Movement is my third book. If people want to get free, unlimited content, I have a YouTube channel, Dr. Mitchell Yass. There's over 300 videos which talk in layperson talk about any type of pain, including headaches from head to toe, plantar fasciitis, bunions, doesn't matter. And I'm going to explain how there is a muscular cause to these situations, back, hip, knee, groin, I don't care where your pain is. And it'll allow you to understand that in most of these cases it's muscular. By the way, the simplest way to know that the cause is muscular and not structural is to recognize that everybody associates their pain with activity. I can't bend, I can't twist, I can't walk upstairs, I can't kneel, I can't reach, I can't turn my head. They always say that their pain is associated with activity. And once you do that, you must recognize the tissue responsible for activity is muscle. So the dysfunction and the pain are connected by a singular cause, a muscular deficit. If the cause was structural, any structural cause, you could expect that pain to be constant 24 hours a day and vary virtually very limitedly in intensity. And yet most people will say, if I do activity, my pain gets brought on, and if I stop the activity, it lessens. That is not a representation of a structural cause. That is irrefutably the representation of a muscular cause. So if that's your circumstance, you are now on your way to recognizing that no attempt to address a structural cause is going to resolve your pain. You're going to have to recognize it as muscular, know which muscles are involved, how to perform the appropriate exercises, use progressive resistance, and again, within weeks, you can be pain-free and fully functional.
Okay, I thank you ever so much for taking the time to talk to us, and I look forward to maybe talking to you again sometime.
I appreciate the opportunity. I always love to spread the message through God that the answer to resolving chronic pain is on earth right now, and everybody has the right to live pain-free and fully functional. So thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. That's Dr. Mitchell Yass.
Gary Walker on 365 Radio.
Choose 365. Choose Dawn's Breakfast Show. Choose Tracy Young. Choose 365 Sounds. Choose that funky Big Friday social. Choose Uneasy Listening or The Road to L, Griff Griffiths and Electronica on Helen's mixtape. Choose The Doctor and wondering where the heck Moose is on a Sunday morning. Why choose sitting on that couch listening to mind-numbing, spirit-crushing bland radio, sticking adverts into your ears? Choose rotten radio and repeat all day, crushing your hope with those miserable tones. Listen to that embarrassment of the BBC or the greatest tits shambles that was spawned to replace it. Choose a positive future. Choose 365. Why wouldn't you want to make a choice like that? 365 Radio, help us fight hunger. Subscribe to 365 Sounds.